Lisa Rossi is the storytelling coach at the Des Moines Register, and we're here to talk to her today about audience and headlines. Lisa, in your experience, which has been several years now and in several different kinds of markets, can you talk to me about the value of knowing what your audience is?
Yeah, I think audience is one of these terms we talk about a lot as journalists, but we don't exactly know what it is. Some of that comes from just observing who and how interacts with your articles online. Your audience is the people who share your articles, who comment on your articles. You can learn from data if your audience is locally based or nationally based or loyal. And from some of those data points, you can glean some strategy. But the bottom line is, a lot of it goes back to some of the gut learnings we've always relied upon as journalists. Will people care about this? Who is going to care about this the very most? How can we make it matter to them? How can we make it essential for their lives? So just asking some of those questions will help you at least have a beginning spot to start with, getting somewhere with your audience.
All right. Another thing that our class is going to be focusing on is headline writing and display type. And I know that you have done a lot of work in the last few years, especially with online social media headlines. Can you talk to me about what makes a good headline, especially for different platforms, perhaps?
So we write our headlines here for Facebook. Facebook is the biggest platform. There's over 1 billion users. 80% of our social traffic comes from Facebook, and social traffic is our fastest growing segment of online traffic. So we write our headlines Facebook first. I would advise anyone who cares about online headlines to study and watch Facebook news headlines. Follow the Washington Post, follow the New York Times, follow the LA Times, and then just for a while, I would advise you just pay attention to what you are clicking on and why, and maybe save those posts and go back and study them later. That is the baseline, great way to start kind of your study of how to write a Facebook headline. Get familiar with the product. So I've done that, so I can talk a little bit about what I've learned from that product. Facebook headlines have evolved a lot. Right now, our users want a headline that is pretty straightforward. They want to know what they're going to get. Headlines also have to be very cognizant of your audience, and your keywords in the headlines can make a big difference for that. One example about that is for our audience in Iowa and Des Moines, we write about a lot of little towns all over Iowa. But Keokuk is not a word that is resonant with a lot of our readers here. It's resonant to a small number. So we would say something is happening in small town Iowa in a headline instead of having Keokuk in the headline. So that's just a small thing of being aware kind of what keywords are resonating with your audience. Getting emotion in your headlines is a good idea, but also proceed with caution because audiences don't necessarily want to be told how to feel. So that's in a very short soundbite, some things on headlines, but I would just say study them and pay attention to your own behaviors online, and then use that to experiment with how you write headlines in class.
Do you use analytics to look at how people are, the headline for online is kind of the invitation to click on something. Do you use analytics to look at how that headline is performing for the story? And have there been times when if you changed it, more of an audience was attracted to it?
Yeah, I am actually not one of those editors that changes the headline very much. I try very hard to workshop the heck out of it so we get it right on the first time. So when it does hit, big outlets like the Des Moines Register Facebook page, which I think has 100,000 followers, we've hit the audience in the right spot at the right time. So in talking about metrics and analytics, they can tell you a lot of stuff about what headlines perform and what don't. We look at a lot of different things. We look at formats. So do question headlines resonate with audiences? They did maybe 3 years ago. They don't anymore. So you can start to see that audiences don't want to question anymore. They want to know a piece of information that will help them. What about headlines with exclamation points? What about headlines that are long? What about headlines that are short? What about headlines that have commas? What about headlines that have you? All of these things you can kind of look at, and you can also look at keywords and sort of what sort of keywords are resonating with your audience. We know that Des Moines and Iowa are particularly potent keywords. And I think there are other words, like iBurst is a really strong keyword for our audience. So, watching your headlines with your metrics, watching your headlines on metrics constantly will help you over time kind of suss out some of those trends that will help inform you.
Any last tips that you would offer students in an editing and design class? They are mostly marketing or business majors, so we're in a news class, so they're kind of a little bit fish out of water. But do you have any last words of wisdom in general?
Yeah, I guess two things. I guess I'm still on the headline topic, so I'll say one more thing on headlines. I would just say work harder on the headline than you think you would have to. You might have to write 10 of them, 12 of them, 20 of them, take a walk, get a coffee, talk to a friend. Really stress about those. The other thing I would say for students is when you click on a news headline on Facebook, I would urge the students to take the time to read the entire article and do that before sharing. That's it. Do what you can to increase your news literacy online and teach your friends about that, because that's a really big concern, I think, for our industry. So if I have my soapbox, that's the last thing I would say.
Excellent. Thank you very much for your time. I know this was a quick hit on headlines, but we are tackling that topic in class next week. So
Yay, have fun.
It'll be fun. I'm excited.